All right. Hi, everybody. Hi, guys. Thanks so much for joining. Just so you know, I know this mic is not elevating my voice in the room. It's just for the online guys. Cool. Thanks everyone so much for getting cozy into this room, and thank you HubSpot for welcoming us all here. We really appreciate it. So today, guys, we're here for a customer success breakfast event. So I hope you've all had your coffees. I hope you had some breakfast. There will be some networking here after as well. Now, what we're talking about today is we're talking about something that is on the tip of everybody's tongue. How do we master the relationship between customer success and our sales partners? I'm sure a lot of us are going through the motions on how best to work with our sales partners. Perhaps we have successful relationships. Perhaps we have relationships that we really want to ensure that we're maximizing and making the most of it. For me personally, I have been at LinkedIn for 3.5 years, and I've had 11 different sales partners throughout the years. And they were all extremely different from each other. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from our guest speakers and HubSpot on how we can really make this relationship a successful one. So we're going to be kicking things off with a quiz. And yes, there are prizes up for grabs. Sorry for the guys online. We will look at having prizes or online prizes for you if you get it right. How many customer success professionals are there in Australia? Shout it out. 600? 300? Anyone in the one? 1,200. I'm going to take that. Very close. 1,400. Round of applause. What was your name?
No, you're good.
I'm going to be passing this back to you. So we've got one of these. I'll pass that back. Sorry, you guys are seeing what you missed out on. And then pass that one back as well. Right, pass that back. Okay. So guys, my name is Katie Clinch. I'm a customer success manager at LinkedIn, and I am thrilled to be your host today. Now, jumping over into our agenda, we do have a jam-packed agenda today. So we're going to be hearing from Barrett at Instructure. We're going to be hearing from Dean Swan, who is head of APAC at Dropbox. Then we're going to be having a fireside chat with Dave and Caitlin from HubSpot. Then, of course, Huey, I'm passing the mic across to the man of the hour, the one who organized this event, to talk about what's coming up next. And then, of course, we're going to have a bit of a networking breakfast as well after. Cool. So jumping straight into it, over across to Barrett.
Thank you. So I'm trying to force myself to be a sitter today, just to, make this a little less formal. One of the things that I think we've at Instructure come across, and is anybody familiar with Instructure or Canvas? Yeah. Probably is. Yeah. Okay. One of the things that is unique about where we're at right now is our growth model. We were founded in 2008 out of Utah. In 2011, we formally launched our product after rounds and roughly 3 years of product valuation, and then we went public in 2015. We are SaaS, cloud native, open, 10 global offices, roughly 1,300 employees, and 50 employees in our APAC office, and that includes some of our sales and solutions engineers out of Hong Kong. The reason I want to mention that specifically is as customer success is growing as an industry, as it's evolving, we are constantly facing new challenges, not just within our industry as we grow, but also collectively, customer success, sales, and SaaS as a whole. Growing pains around the relationships, right? There's this, I was talking with Huey about this a couple of months ago, and the idea that account managers and customer success managers are not the same team, are not the same thing. And we are going to continuously be fighting against that perception, especially from, sorry to say, but the sales teams. That's the model that historically they're more used to as people are moving from software services to licensed or SaaS services. That's a challenge that we're always going to come up against. But so relative to Instructure, we have 3 core products that we do: Canvas again, Bridge, which is our HR system, and then Arc, which is a video platform. So even in that, the idea of the services that we're working with, the products that we're dealing with, and even the sales patterns, the sales models across global markets, they're different. So we're having to be a little more adaptive to that. When we talk about customer success, I'm not sure if how many of you are familiar with Lincoln Murphy, 16 Ventures. A lot of really insightful stuff as he goes through markets and speaks to different industries about customer success. And one of the things that is always really interesting is so much of what we think about in customer success, our side of the fence, is the idea that our accounts, our administrators, our end user, those are our customers. But one of the things that we have to realize is sales. All of the things, all of the people within our company, in our industry that we need to do our job successful, they're actually our customers. And we have to be able to leverage them. We have to be able to work with them. And that does require completely different strategies. Our core value system at Instructure is having cooties. So being focused on the customer experience, openness, trust, integrity, excellence, and then simplicity. And that ties back into our partnership, because that's just not a customer success initiative. That's our core philosophy. That transpires. You know, I like to think that since we work in education, you know, we have this very holistic view, and there's this mission to it because it's about education, it's about growing and learning, and it is. And I think that's something that actually makes me really passionate about my role. But that may not translate to all departments and all of our team members, and that's okay. But if we all have the same initiatives around our core philosophy and how we approach what we do, that's where that partnership, I think, really ties in, because initially, or in that intent, it's all about the success of the customer. That's me. The significance of that in APAC for us as we grow, right? You know, we talk about having the 10 different offices, and, you know, we always talk about up and to the right relative to our growth model, is that in this market, we are, I would say, relative to, you know, the North American market, it's a Salt Lake based company. We're a couple of years behind when it comes to the idea of how SaaS and how customer success, how that model works within an industry. And we really have felt the challenge of the account manager customer success relationship, you know, being more proactive rather than reactive. Our team, when we talk about the model that we work with, we don't have quotas. You know, I think that's something that's really important to, am I rustling? Okay. That's one of the things that we think is real important. We don't have a quota around upsells and commission, or upsells. We do get commissions for it. We like to think of ourselves as the farmers. Sales, you guys are the hunter-gatherers. We're the farmers. We till the land, we curate it. We operate as the settlers to your Wild West. And that's unique, right? That's exactly. That's unique for us. And again, it helps us focus on the things that matter. It's ultimately, as Lincoln Murphy says, it's helping the customer find success in whatever their objectives are. It's not about us challenging the relationship with the customer by having quotas that we're trying to push sales and we're trying to generate leads and things like that. Ultimately, if that lead is what helps them get to their end goal, beautiful. I've now done my job in customer success, but I'm not just trying to steer and test them everything that's available. Yep. No. And I'll stop moving. Nope. You good? Yeah? Okay. I'll try not to be. It's a good thing I wasn't standing, yeah. And so that just speaks to how we differentiate ourselves. You know, that idea of we're the farmers. We're going to work the land. We're going to help it be prosperous. We're going to help our customers grow. And in that, we count on our hunters to bring and help us in that. And that's what creates that sustainable model. How are we doing on time? Good. In that, though, we do create a pretty dynamic relationship. It's not just about the end goal of, you know, reducing churn and bringing in new acquisitions. You know, it is all about that, but it's not all about that. Because what we also find is in our industry, you know, we're pretty young. They say, you know, the average lifespan in CS at a single company now is about 3 years. A lot of the industry considers itself a contract worker, even though you are a full-time employee. So just that relationship with the organization that you're hired by and you're an employee of has changed. So this presents some really unique opportunities with professional development. If I've only got a short window, in addition to the job that I'm doing, to get that professional development and work with people in sales and work with people that are account development, that's a unique opportunity to engage and to partner with them. And in that, when we're enabling sales, we're contributing back, because no one tells the customer success story better than customer success. Sales will go out there, they'll be on site, they'll be doing presentations, and they'll talk about what the guys on the other side of the fence do, but we tell that story better. So that's how we can participate and engage with them, and also, you know, create stronger relationships with a potential customer. And then sales enables CS. Again, it's a two-way street. They help inform us what they've learned during their sales process. They can transfer that information to us, so that way we can hit the ground running with the customer and, you know, trying to increase that return on investment or accelerate that engagement and that ROI for them in a way that's meaningful and impactful. And then ultimately, in all that, we create amazing experiences. Those amazing experiences create amazing stories. And ultimately, that just feeds right back into sales. That helps them tell the story, that gives them case studies, that gives them data to leverage about what this model how this model works, and why it's successful and why it's unique to SaaS going forward. So again, I like to usually end on a good quote, but this one is a great way to start this presentation. So it's also a good way to revisit it and end it as well. Yeah, you can focus on adoption, retention, expansion, or advocacy, or you can focus on the customer's desired outcome and get all of those things. I think that's ultimately what customer success really should be about and focusing on, especially in its relationship with the sales groups. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So click a big button. Right, so I'm Dean Swan. I head up sales at Dropbox, or I represent the Wild West Cowboys, as Barrett puts it. Yeah. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit about Dropbox, what we do from the sales function perspective, how CS and sales work together. What does that partnership look like? Actually got our CS team in the room with David and Hamish. And it's a high growth team, so if anyone's looking for roles. We had a joke about that yesterday because Dave was like, don't tell anyone that we're hiring. So I said, okay, we'll see how we go. A little bit about some of the challenges that we're experiencing as a high growth organization, challenges of scale, and a few other things that I'll get into. What does a successful customer engagement look like? And ultimately, what are some of our insights and experiences and learnings based on Dropbox today? And the good thing is, I mean, just listening to yourself, Barrett, it's not going to be too divergent from what you've said. So hopefully we'll reinforce a little bit of that message.
I just copied your slides.
All right, well, brilliant. First. Yeah. So Dropbox, in terms of my team's functions, I head up a team of business development reps and a team of account executives across the region. And if you have a look at what our charter is, it's really about bringing Dropbox as a content collaboration platform into the enterprise. So many people are familiar with Dropbox from a consumer perspective. We got 500 million plus users globally, but Dropbox over the last couple of years has really embarked on this mission about bringing Dropbox into the enterprise and really helping companies collaborate more effectively and really helping end users achieve their mission faster. And yeah, if you look at the team, ultimately my team is responsible for acquiring customers, right? And if I look at the CSM team is responsible for growing and retaining those customers. And ultimately together, hopefully we achieve an outcome of developing the biggest and the brightest Dropbox customers. That really is going to be a reinforcing action for us in the market. If you have a look at the typical Dropbox customer in enterprise, they have all shapes and sizes, and I think that's what introduces the opportunity and the challenge. So we've got mid-sized companies right up to some of the largest organizations in the region across all industries. So we've got big four banks, we've got advisory firms, we've got in retail companies like Harvey Norman. In the tech industry, I think we're in the Atlassian founder room, we've got companies like Atlassian. If I look in media, we've got News Corp. We've got in the education space, University of Sydney, which is 67,000 users. So these are massive organizations, and when we talk about a content platform, there's a lot of moving parts to that. So again, a great opportunity and a challenge for us. So how do sales and customer success work together? Sometimes I'm that guy, other times CSM's that guy. But really it's about, if I think about, in simple terms, I say sales is for acquiring customers and customer success is about retaining and growing customers. But the real work is for me and my team is to work with organizations, understand their business imperatives, understand what the stakeholder imperatives are, and then really create value around that that's linked to our platform. And then the role of customer success, and this is where the real work takes place, is really about delivering and capturing that value for the organization. And I think if we do that really well, ultimately the customer gets to an end of that journey and they can stand up and be a big, bright, shining customer case study for us to say, yeah, we got a lot of value out of that, and this is how this organization has helped enable us and further our mission. And there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, right? So when I see that shiny customer case study, I know that there's a team of people working behind the scenes over an extended period of time to make that happen. And that's really how sort of sales and customer success work together. If I lay it out on a timeline in terms of the customer engagement, really what we do is later on in the sales engagement process, it's still pre-sales. We'd engage our customer success team to run a deployment planning workshop with the customer. And that's really about identifying who are the stakeholders that we need to work with, what are the business imperatives and objectives that we're looking to achieve, and then really map out that deployment process. And then post-sales, it's really working with the organization in terms of deployment planning workshops, helping them deploy that, get the active usage, train the users, both administration and end users, have quarterly business reviews, and hopefully deliver on a great project and experience, and then start to grow that customer, and then get to a point where they also drive a great renewal for us as well. And I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that in infrastructure, it's not a quota carrying role, and it's the same in Dropbox, right? So it's that separation of church and state where you've got sales on a quota. So my team is responsible for acquiring customers and driving our revenue targets, whereas our customer success team is really about renewals and activation and deployment, right? So what are some of the challenges? If I have a look at that, it's scale. How do you scale we're really like a pretty specialized organization. So we've got massive reach, but, we're growing and there's a handful of people that are trying to serve a significant customer base and customers of all sizes. So, if I look at a University of Sydney, that engagement in of itself could consume our entire team. And so we're engaging with the likes of those guys, but then again, those banks and a few other organizations. So scale, and we spend a lot of time as an organization at a global level, but also locally, trying to figure out how do we deliver and assure that customer experience for our largest customers, but also the smaller customers that over time will become our largest customers, right? So, we're developing that process in terms of how do we deliver on customer success for organizations that are 1,000+ users, and then how do you deliver customer success for 100 to 1,000 users? So that's sort of defining that bit. So scale is a challenge. Responsibilities, you've all seen that sporting moment where you've got two players running for the ball, no one calls it, and it just sort of falls in the middle. And, when I arrived at Dropbox, it was interesting for me because it's in the enterprise, we're like a early stage startup in a high growth company in Dropbox for Business, right? So a lot of these processes are being defined and you're sort of going through these experiences. So, David and I used to have these conversations about renewals, and I'm like, well, the AE is responsible. Well, you guys are responsible. And it's sort of like, you sort of end up in a situation where the ball drops and you go, all right, well, let's just both sort of call it out, do what we need to do, and get a great customer outcome and experience. So, defining those responsibilities, that's part of our challenge, and defining the processes around that, and how do we work together and how do we complement each other, ultimately for the best outcome for the customer. And then measures, right? So as I said, we've got a situation where my AEs and my team are really measured on contract value and revenue and acquiring customers. And and our CSM team and other teams are responsible for a different set of measures. I think what we've done really well as a leadership team is we've taken a step back from our own sort of individual measures and KPIs, and we've had a look at what's our joint vision for success. And we've defined a vision for success, and we've defined like what's our sort of World Cup moment in 3 years' time. So, as a group and as a team in Dropbox in the region, what are we going to be proud about? What are we building as a team? And I think that's helped us define that vision for success, and has helped us get away from our own individual measures and rather a common measure and a common outcome that we're driving towards. So what does a successful customer engagement look like? I think we've got a number of great examples recently where, if I think about a renewal for one of our large customers, which is one of the large banks, and that really was CSM led and supported by the AE. And, if I have a look at that, we got to a very successful outcome there. And thanks to David and the team in terms of them driving that customer experience. And yeah, and that team was the value that the customer was investing in. So we got a great outcome there. Another example, if I think about University of Sydney, and that's a massive contract for us as an organization, and a massive sort of undertaking as well. We've got 55,000 students that we're looking to deploy, and we've got 12,000 faculty and staff. And there's a lot of moving parts in that. And as a successful outcome, I think the team, in terms of what we've been able to achieve in the first sort of month or 2 months in that organization, is phenomenal, because we've gone in there. David and the team have promoted the value of Dropbox to faculty and staff, but equally also sort of been on the ground in like O Week and promoting Dropbox for students and making them aware of that. And again, that is something that we've done in concert with the team as well, right? So the CSM team have done a lot of planning around that, and we've been there to lend our support. But, what does a successful customer engagement look like? Again, it comes to that, that case study when we've got a customer that's standing up in front of the camera and is talking about their experience, and that the value that they've been able to derive from our engagement and how we're helping them achieve their mission as a business. And that ultimately is what a successful customer engagement looks like. And that's when we've all done our parts really well in that. Look, tips and suggestions, and so I had to put the unicorn in there, because sometimes, these outcomes are a little bit rare. But I think it's sharing the journey, and what I mean by that is, like, we talk a lot about the baton change between sales and CSM. So, how do we make sure that it's not a customer experience where the customer's engaged with someone, they've signed the contract, and then we just all sort of disappear, and that's it? And how do you assure the journey of that great customer experience from sale through to post-sale? And in practical terms, what we've done is we've sort of really mapped that out. So we're saying, right, this is the process, these are the steps, these are the meetings that we want to take, these are the people that we need to have on our side and the customer side at those meetings, this is the agenda for the meeting, these are the verifiable outcomes that we're looking for. And it's pretty critical in terms of that handover. And it comes back down to business outcomes for us as well, because we know that if a customer is 25% or less deployed, there's a 56% chance of churn, right? So there's real impact. So you might get the sale once, but you're not going to get an ongoing outcome in that respect. So sharing the journey, super critical, not only from a business perspective, but also most importantly for a customer experience perspective. That common vision, as I said before, we've all got our own KPIs, OKRs, or whatever you want to call it, but having a common unifying vision as a team, something that everyone's really rallying behind, is passionate about, that's really helped us sort of get away from our own individual sort of focus points, and really focused on the bigger outcome that we're trying to achieve. And that's something that we're putting in place. And then getting into the weeds, right? So one of our company values is sweat the details. And I think, for a successful sales customer success manager relationship and engagement, I think you have to sweat the details. You got to know who's on point for what are you going to contribute, what are the other people going to contribute, who we're engaging with in the organization, map out your stakeholders, sweat the details in terms of what the customer, is looking for as an outcome. I'm learning all the time, right? So, when I listened to David, I was like, I thought we had it all covered through the sales engagement. And then he's like, well, yeah, but there's this person that doesn't even know about the project, and that person, and then there's this technology in their environment that you need to think about. So we're always sort of learning, but I think it's the details and getting into the weeds that ultimately is helping us sort of deliver on a great customer experience and outcome. And it's fun, right? So I think that's the thing with the industry that we work in. It's constantly changing, growing at a high pace, and these are all really interesting problems to sort of tackle in terms of how do you grow and scale, and how you do it in a way that's delivering a great experience for your customers, and ultimately as a business you get to grow even faster. Good.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah. You want to click it? Yeah? Okay. That one's less hot. We'll swap seats.
Yeah, I'm assessing where
Sit
you
next to
guys
you,
are
sir.
sitting against each other or next to each other. We will have some time for Q&A for the guys. I really appreciate both of you coming and speaking. It's so good to hear from both sides. We did want to welcome in, our sales partners, just so we can get insights to how they're feeling about customer success. So that was fantastic. So I'm going to jump into a fireside chat. And when I realized that I had you both here, I wrote a lot of questions down. So I'm hoping we will get to them. But first things first, I'd love you both to introduce yourself and talk on your role at what you're doing at HubSpot.
Hello, I'm Caitlin, and I head up our customer success team here, looking after both our direct customers as well as our agency partners. And I started at HubSpot 3 years ago to help launch our customer success team. And when we were coming up for the topic for this event, it was easy for me to want to ask Shep to sit up here next to me because we have amazing alignment. So I'm proud that we can happily sit up here together and not have any animosity towards each other.
Let's see what Dave says.
I'm going to have to be very careful. I answer some of these questions. So my name is Dave Shepard, commonly known here in the HubSpot walls as Shep. I look after the sales team for Australia and New Zealand. I've been at HubSpot 8 years, so in headquarters back in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and now have been out here in Australia, in Sydney for 2.5 years.
Thank you, guys. So I think first things first, it sounds like you guys have a great relationship. So what I would love to know is, what is your sales process like and how does it talk to the customer success side?
I'll take that one. So it depends a little bit on which segment you're in from a salesperson's perspective. So we have some customers who our average sale takes about 24, 25 days. We have another customer segment that takes maybe 60 to 75 days. So it depends a little bit on that. I think HubSpot has a pretty unique sale in the sense that we have to be very evangelical in terms of kind of selling this new vision for companies in terms of the way they do sales and marketing and now services. Just launched a new product last week or 2 weeks ago. And the trick for our sales reps is they have to do it in a transactional way, really quick sale, but they have to handhold each of those prospects along a very kind of stringent process. And it probably takes 5 or 6 hours on the phone to get every one of those customers to sign up. And they have to do that 5 or 6 times every single month just to hit their monthly target. So they're under a lot of pressure, especially the last week of the month. And I think we try to do our very best to set the proper expectations so that when those customers come on, they're set up for success.
And I'll add that actually part of the sales process, not every time, but often, because we do have such good alignment and we have customer success managers speaking to sales rep all the time, the reps feel comfortable pulling in a customer success manager to one of those closing calls to actually talk about our services. I think our product is wonderful, but another thing we're really well known for is having this remarkable level of customer service. So who better to actually help sell that than the person who's delivering it? So they'll often pull us into calls or even just come up to our desk and have a conversation so we can really help make it a smooth transition into becoming a customer.
I want to add one thing to that. So last month in April, Caitlin actually helped us close the biggest deal we've ever closed in all of APAC, which was a big deal. And she was intimately involved in maybe the last 2 or 3 steps of that process, as well as kind of consulting us early on to make sure the sales guys were setting the right expectations. It was a huge win for everyone.
Right. It's always good to hear about how customer success, we're helping support these great deals and we're helping support, these sales partners. But post sales, do you find that, the sales reps are still involved post sales, or are you passing it over to customer success?
Yeah, so how the process works when a new deal comes on board, we actually have another function that is equally important to be aligned with this group with, is what we call our implementation specialist. So before they actually work with a customer success manager, they work with someone who specializes in getting that customer fully implemented. So all 3 of these parties need to be very closely aligned to share that comfortable customer experience and make sure it's a great journey. And then something that I think is really great that we do at HubSpot is once a customer comes on board, the sales rep stays very much involved and is actually responsible for helping to grow those accounts. Now, they don't do that on their own. Obviously, the customer success manager knows the customer the best, is spending a lot of time with them, and will source really great growth opportunities. But we know our sales reps are better than us in selling, so why not then pass it over to them to maintain that relationship and actually grow those accounts and help to close it. So we also are not targeted necessarily on it. And we changed our model to make sure that we were really focused on retention, but it's still essential that we're helping our sales reps with some of their targets with install-based growth, as well as it makes our customers extremely sticky and adds to retention.
One thing I'd add to that is, so we have that implementation specialist that kind of works with the customer for the first 90 days, and then that gets kicked over to Caitlin's team. But if there are any problems in that first 90 days, Caitlin's team does not jump in. We actually put that back on the sales team to make sure that they can set everything right, and go back to maybe the original set of expectations that were set, or what the original customer's desires were. Sometimes that changes over 90 days, but it's really on the sales team to make sure that we get off to a good start there, not Caitlin's team to kind of come in and save the day.
Personally, I think that's a great segue to my next question, because for myself working at LinkedIn, I've seen a lot of change. And I think when I'm thinking about the change, a lot of it is how we introduce the customer success to the client. So for myself, I'm going to admit that I don't think it's worked completely well at LinkedIn initially when we're looking at the sales guys to push into the customer success for the client. So I'd love to hear, what is your client's experience? What do they experience? Is it lots of touch points from different people, from the sales to the customer success?
So the customer success manager definitely holds that primary relationship, but the sales rep was a huge part of that process to get the customer on board. So they've already formed that relationship. I think it's about just setting clear expectations from day one of, these are the certain people who are going to be really involved in your process, and having these multiple touch points. But it also means that's very important internally to have that strong alignment. I think culture is a massive thing we focus on at HubSpot, and making sure that we're all really great people, which also leads to just being naturally happy in your workplace. Customers feel that the same way that they feel if there's tension in between the different people they're working with. If you're aligned and having conversations internally, when you all go out and speak to the customer, they're going to know that you're having those conversations, and it makes it a very comfortable experience rather than a disjointed, I'm speaking to all these different people. So it's all about what you do internally that then transmits onto the customer.
I don't have much to add to that, but I would say every time we make a change, it's usually because a customer or a set of customers are saying something like, this doesn't feel right. And it's because of some misalignment internally, or with our partners, right? We kind of go to market in two different ways. On the sales team, we have a direct team that sells directly to customers. And then we have a bunch of partners that also sell to basically the same set of customers. And that can get a little tricky as well, trying to manage, a totally different separate entity that has their own kind of goals and business processes. But we have one shared customer that's really important.
Amazing. I'm hearing a lot of alignment here. I hear that both at LinkedIn through customer success managers. We're always talking about how can we align better. So obviously you guys have changed what you've been doing, and you're going pretty gangbusters when it comes to alignment. How do you feel that this has impacted the return? So yes, we're talking about customer success. Has this impacted sales? Money.
Yeah. So how many people in the room are at a SaaS software company? Yeah. Okay. So you guys all get this. What I was going to say was that, I often tell the sales team that we would rather have one customer for 10 years than 10 customers for 1 year, assuming they were paying us all the same amount of money. That's a really hard thing to say to a sales rep, but it's true, right? Like, our model is like, get customers and keep them forever. That's the absolute best thing we can do to improve the return for the business. Retention is way more important in some ways than net new logos. If we could grow each of our customers little by little, you get this kind of compounding interest thing, and then you get that hockey stick up and to the right type thing. So from a sales side, we've over the years have really experimented a bunch around our our compensation structure. I don't know if do you have questions about this, or should we just go for it now?
No, please do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah, so we do a bunch of things on the sales side. So a couple is, the worst one is what we call a clawback. So it started where, I'm gonna go way back actually. So when I started at HubSpot, we ran a study and said, hey, why is our churn so high? And it was like ridiculous. There was like 1 month, it was like 7.5%. That's ridiculous. It's like retention of something like 50 or 60% annualized. Just terrible. And what we ran a study, and what we found was that essentially you could tie churn to sales reps. That was the thing that was most correlated. So what we basically learned was that the sales reps were setting really poor expectations, or were really good at getting certain customers excited. And then when that excitement wavered, because we were a startup, maybe the product worked a little bit less well than what the sales rep said, we had a disaster.
We are not unicorns. Customer successes are not unicorns.
No, it's not unicorns. So this one study that we ran early on has actually probably had a knock-on effect for as long as I've been at HubSpot, which is about 8 years. I'm not sure it's always been healthy, but what it has done is it's really impacted our culture. And one of our key things about our culture is that we always solve for the customer. So we've built this commission plan where you have clawbacks, which is now if a customer churns within the first 9 months, the sales rep has to pay back their commission to the business. That's painful. In addition, if they have too much churn, a single sales rep, they can't get promoted. So their promotion, we do this weird thing in the HubSpot sales world where every year, if you just hit your numbers, basically you get promoted and you get a little bit more extra money for doing the same job. We think it works really well for millennials, keeps people motivated, but you can't do that as a sales rep if you have too much churn. So you have another piece in there. Now, having said all of this, no commission plan or compensation plan is perfect. And so where there are gaps, we try to rely on, the relationship between sales and services, but more probably importantly is the culture piece. And that's why having a part of our culture code say solve for the customer, we can always go back to that with our salespeople and say like, hey, I know you're technically didn't maybe do anything wrong here, but this wasn't what was best for the customer. And this was the result. You caused a whole bunch of problems for them. You caused a whole bunch of problems for us. And we try to work those things out in the most open and transparent way.
The other part that ties to it as well is from a customer success side, we have commissions that are paid on the growth of our account. So if we can qualify and find a great opportunity for a sales rep to close, then we'll actually be paid on the commission of when that closes. So I think that just helps the sales reps know that we have a very inherent interest in making sure that we have that growth. And then from just a general overall vision that we have as a team, it's great if we hit our retention targets. But if we're also not hitting our sales targets, then culturally that's not a lot of fun. So we really do want every single team to be hitting together. And part of that can be contributed in some essence from the customer success team by sourcing and finding that growth opportunity. So as a team, we're constantly talking about what we call SQLs, which is finding these services qualified leads. Where are we tracking? How can we make sure we get more? This is where the sales team's at this month. How can we help close that gap with the help of our team? So I think it's just a mindset shift as well.
And, we're obviously here in Sydney, and I know a lot of us in the room, we have other locations, other organisations, part of the business. Of course, Sydney's doing it the best. But how do you find that you're talking to the other organisational lines or, your partners overseas? Is it working the same for them?
It's definitely better here.
Right answer.
I mean, I am biased, but I also think that we are fortunate that we started pretty much from day one. So when I first came in, a huge thought in the back of my head was how can I align with the sales reps and the sales leader on the ground here to make sure we do have a really great customer experience, mainly because one of our core values is solving for the customer. Because we started so small, it meant that we aligned from day one, which means that it's really easy to keep that structure going. Whereas Cambridge and Dublin, these are much bigger offices where you can't necessarily have a one-to-one relationship with your sales rep. So it is a little bit different here, and I think we do some really great initiatives here, quarterly alignment meetings, But the other offices are also doing some great things that I spoke to our head of services in Dublin this week. And she gave me a great idea for something that we could trial and do here with a larger office. It works really well. They have their customer success reps work on a massive case study of one of the biggest customers they've been able to help grow, looking at it all the way from when they first came on as a customer to now them being using our multiple products that we have, our entire growth stack, we call it. And they do a huge showcase, and sales reps get really excited and show up to this and can be part of the voting process. That's giving them amazing stories that they can use on their calls. And the winner of that competition gets to go and spend a week at another office. So something that I had never considered or thought about that now I'm going to look into implementing for our office.
I don't know if I have too much to say about this one. I think Caitlin kind of nailed it. The one thing I might add is that whenever you think about like innovation, you want to look at like what does your particular situation have for strengths. And I think when you're a long ways away from maybe a corporate, sometimes like there's just not as much of a spotlight on you. And typically our teams are a little smaller than corporate as well. So that should make us a little more nimble and a little faster. And when you can find some places where you can kind of own the entire innovative process and you don't need help from somewhere else, that actually gives you a great chance to kind of test some things out. And I know that I think, frankly, Caitlin and the services team is actually really good at this sort of thing. And so we're actually doing some things in APAC and in ANZ that we're not doing anywhere else. It's now our job to kind of measure that, see if it actually works, and then figure out a way to roll that out to the rest of the company or see if it would be applicable to them. And so I think one of the things we can do is innovate and have a much bigger impact on our global teams if things go well here.
So I'm hearing a lot of things that you guys are doing well. What would you say is the one thing that you are mastering? What is the one thing that you are absolutely nailing as a partnership together here at HubSpot that you could perhaps give all of us in the room some advice on?
My team creates all of the problems, and you know how shit goes. It goes downhill. So I'm going to pass this one to Caitlin, and let's see what she thinks. So we're doing well.
No, I disagree. No. I think communication and respect would be the two things. We have incredible communication through between both teams to the point where someone could just walk up to my desk or someone on my team's desk and just have a conversation and vice versa. So that's huge, having really open and clear communication and respect. Everyone in this office they were hired for a reason because they fit our core values, which are heart. And if you have those core values, then you're going to respect the people you work with. So we're not going to intentionally try and make a customer churn that's not a good fit and they're going to get their claw back. We're going to figure out a way to make that customer work because we don't want to have that sales rep go through clawback. And a sales rep on the other side isn't going to try and bring through a bad fit customer just to hit their quota because they know that their CSM on the other side, they have an amazing relationship with, and that would just break the trust and respect they have.
This question has to come because this sounds like it's a really healthy relationship. There's a lot of collaboration. We're of course aligned. What would be an area of improvement, if any, that we could both be working on?
So one thing I talked a little bit about like the sales compensation plan. The one thing that I wish we were a little bit better aligned on across HubSpot is that both the customer success people and the sales people, that their compensation was actually a little bit more aligned. And I think that when it's not, it's just inherently is going to create some problems. I think we do a really good job at it here at HubSpot. And we really rely on that culture stuff to fill in those gaps because it's just impossible to come up with a perfect compensation plan for every single department and have them all perfectly aligned. But yeah, I think that would be a place where we can probably continue to innovate over time.
I agree.
Okay, the last question from me before I open it up to Q&A. If I had a magic wand, if I turned this mic into a magic wand, what would be the one thing you would both change about the relationship between customer success and sales?
This one's really easy for me. I
Okay.
this is like beyond easy. I would have every single one of my sales reps hop on the kickoff call with the customer success people or with the implementation specialists at the very least. I can't tell you how many times just having that triangle of people, right? The salesperson, the implementation specialist, and the customer all on the phone together. There's just no way that any kind of like false expectations can like proceed beyond that point. It's a lot to ask when you're signing up 10 to 20 customers a month for the sales rep. But I do think we can probably do that for some of our higher value customers, so that it's just really hard for a customer to tell the implementation specialist, oh, I want to focus on A, B, and C. And what the rep and the customer actually talked about was X, Y, and Z. And I think we just get rid of all of those sorts of like false starts. And I think that'd be the first thing I'd change.
Dave, you can make that happen next week. Book them all in.
Let's do it. I think one thing that we also can do and probably should do is when our new hires come back in the office as part of their training, have them, they do a lot of shadowing of their own teams and their own functions, swap it and have sales reps shadow customer success calls to understand and be able to sell better what we do, and vice versa for us to understand the sales process and use that and implement it into our calls. So we're going to start doing that.
Amazing.
Easy. Yeah.
Magic has happened. I think that's great. You know, we're all getting a lot of ideas here about what we can be doing. And I know it's time, we're asking time for guys to jump on different calls, but it's definitely something, if they just block out a couple of hours, you can make the magic happen. So I'm going to be opening it up for Q&A. I'm going to get Barrett and Dean to come back up, and we're going to go around the room because we have some questions straight away. Nathan, I'm going to pass this over to you.
So I'll kick things off.
Please do.
I might just start with Dave, and I missed your name actually, Caitlin. I read Mark Roberge's book, The Sales Acceleration Formula. It talks about internal service level agreements between marketing and sales. Do you have something formal between customer success and sales? And if not, service level agreements, do you have, certain structure or things that need to be completed in the CRM? Kind of maybe there's more formal or structural expectation setting between the two parties.
Yep, we definitely have like informal measures in place. I think one example of that is when you bring a new customer on board in the CRM, there are certain notes that you have to fill in to make it a really smooth customer transition, so that if you don't have the opportunity to speak to the sales rep, the customer doesn't feel that. So there are definitely small things like that we have in place.
We don't necessarily call it an SLA, but and there's like a lot of guidelines for the sales reps about how they're supposed to communicate what happens in the first week, in the first month, in the first 90 days. And so those are really well defined, but we don't have an SLA.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you.
I would actually add one of the things that I think we've taken on in a similar formula is with the scheduling of the kickoff, the time that transpires between the contract being signed and that initial contact from your CSM and your IC team, our onboarding team. We have that set at 48 hours. So there has to be a communication that's sent out. Even if it's just an introduction, we'd like to schedule this out a week, but there needs to be that contact. Otherwise that customer is now just in sort of this nebulous space of, well, what happens next? So that's one of the SLAs that we really try to aspire to.
Ours is 48 hours too. Exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So we were reading the same book. Yeah.
That's all right. I don't need my. Oh, okay.
Dean, you talked about your account executives in the mix. So your sales team, your CSMs, and your AEs.
Yeah.
Where does the AEs fit into the equation?
In what respect?
Well, so contracts has been signed.
Yeah.
So before you hand
Yeah.
over to the CSM, where does your account executive, like if that customer's got issues 4
Yeah.
months down
Yeah.
the track, is
Yeah.
it the AE they call
Yeah.
or the CSM?
Yeah. It's a bit of both, right? And I think that comes back to that scale challenge, right? So if I look at the AE's book of business, they've got about 600-700 accounts, right? So there's a lot going on there. And again, it comes down to the strength of the relationship. So some customers will err towards the AE because there's a ongoing contact there and a relationship there, and others will go to the CSM. So but I think what we're doing, David and I and the broader team, is really mapping out that sort of that life cycle, if you like. So if it's a 2-year contract, so that T minus 24 months, what are those touch points and how do we maintain an engagement with that customer so that they're very clear around who they can engage with, but at the same time that we can also surface these issues before they really become a sort of a massive fire, if you like, right? So we do QBRs and a few other things. It's not perfect. It's far from it. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just wanted to check to see if there's any questions online coming through before. No, nothing through. Over to Erica.
It's a question to all of you. Just curious whether you have any formalized handover process, and is it like a statement of works, handover documentation, or it's just a chat?
So essentially, again, coming back to that process, we're meeting about this yesterday, and we're having a conversation around, well, how do we take our intent in terms of mapping something out, but actually operationalize it, right? So, and we're talking about, well, let's use a platform or a tool like Trello and have a Kanban board that all the responsible leads across the business, across customer success, our solution architecture team and our sales team can really look at that and all be on the same page around where different customers are up to in that process. And we call it sort of like 6 weeks to success, because it's a very critical time from signing an agreement with the customer to actually delivering something. And that first sort of 6 weeks is, if you show up really well and you deliver on that, you're going to have a great outcome and a great project. So we're talking about things like Trello, Kanban board for that. And then obviously we've got, Dropbox paper, which is a place where we keep a whole lot of notes and we can do a bit of that handover. But again, we're still sort of shaping it and, formalizing that.
I've got a question. Pat, and we've got microphone. So the question is, what is the typical communication to the customer around the roles of sales and CSM? Typically, is it well understood? Much sort of repeat the question for.
Yeah, so the question was, what are the roles between the account executive and the CSM in terms of kind of communicating that to the customer? So, yeah, I'll go, I guess. So we try to handle as much of that as possible on the sales side. To be honest, I think the sales reps do a pretty good job, that they could probably do a better job. But I think at HubSpot, it's really important that we then do it again on the kickoff call. And it usually happens probably 2 or 3 times at a minimum, just to make sure that, like, we call it swim lanes, that the customer understands exactly what each person that they interact with and what their job function is and what their responsibilities are and kind of what their goals are in terms of helping solve for the customer.
Yeah, so from our experience, I think we've got that clarity at that 1,000 user plus engagement. So like your deep engagement. So I think we're bringing in the CSM team early on in the sales process. We're doing the deployment planning meetings with the customers. So already there's that relationship, that engagement and roles and responsibilities established. And then that gets just reinforced and formalized as we go through the project. I think our challenge is, how do you do that consistently and predictably across all range of customers, right? So geos, geos and whatnot. So that's probably where our challenge is how do we formalize that and communicate that the customer experience is going to be a great one, irrespective of your size, and they know who to go to for why.
We've got one question here, one at the back. So Michael, have you 2, then we'll be done.
I got a few, but I'll save it for when we have the catch up. This one cuts across any of you guys. How does your product feedback loop work? And then there's a small add-on. Getting a full visibility the whole way through the pipeline from marketing, sales, every single stage you can draw lines through, be it process, flow, product. Who does that and how does that work? So it's kind of an addendum to the product feedback loop. So because I need to know how you do that.
Well, I'll jump in. The swim lane, using that expression for the financials, the forecasting, ours is a little bit disjointed right now because there are so many disparate groups trying to impact and influence it, especially with the sales process, the post-sales. We use a team called Install Base, sort of as that intermediary between sort of growth and expansion. That's a little bit fuzzy for us right now. But relative to customer feedback, we used to send out 3 times a year a survey to our customers. We have, in our CRMs, our customer management systems, we have a survey contact. And we send that out 3 times a year. Then we scaled it back to 2. We felt that was creating a lot of white noise. But that's where we then take in our NPS and our CSAT scores for the health of the business. And we also have elements of that around not just the customer success engagement and the utilization of the product and the way that they're finding that relationship, but also what is the support model? How are your SLAs being met from the support team? And then also, what is your feedback around the actual product development cycle? So we actually even break up into those 3 different areas, our customer satisfaction surveys.
Yeah, I mean, with our business, because we've got such a large consumer offering and then we've got a business offering as well, they're a little bit different, right? So I think our engineering team and product and design team will have a direct connection with customers on the consumer front, and they're getting feedback in many various ways and mechanisms. But in the enterprise, part of the challenges that we had, there was feedback coming from many different sources. So it was our solution architect team, our CSM team, our sales team, our customer support team, and so on. So, and how do you manage all of that? And then how do you sort of make sure that engineering aren't overwhelmed with a whole lot of product requests, feature requests, and whatnot? So one of the things that we've done recently in our business is we've got someone that reports into a head of engineering who really is that go-between between our sort of customer-facing teams and engineering, and really working in terms of making sure that we're sort of bubbling up the high priority issues, the things that we really need to think about in terms of product gaps, service gaps, and all of that sort of thing. So I think that's been an important sort of leadership role that we've implemented to make sure that those 2 organizations are working together well. And then again, just having that loop where our teams that are at the coalface with the customer have a way of feeding that back into engineering and helping them prioritize their feature set as well.
So for HubSpot, we have a couple different ways we do this. One is that it's built directly into the product. So any feature that you're using within the product, you have the opportunity to give feedback, and our product managers will look for trends that they see. And if it's a common trend, then we should fix it for our customers or make a change. Another is we send our customers to an ideas board where they can actually submit and implement ideas and upvote ideas. They have a certain number of votes they can put in per month. And ones that are the highest votes, we're going to also make a change because that's what our customers want. And then the third would be in conversations with your customer success manager. If your customer is asking you to change something within the product and you think it's not just a one-to-one case, this is something that can really positively impact all of our customers, then it's worthwhile for us to take that idea to the product manager for whatever feature it is, have a conversation, and they really appreciate getting that feedback.
Right. We've got one quick question before I hand it over to Huey, just at the back here.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this great session. My name is Bassam. I'm a customer success manager at Cisco. I'm here to share my experience around that. We have a framework we follow between our organization. My question is, I heard a lot about alignment between account team and customer success, and I believe customer success is a very new thing, and it's a mindset. It's not an individual responsibility. It's overall company mindset. So I'm keen to understand from you. It's a question for all of you. Is like how you define and measure success, and what are the is it about a leading or lagging indicators that how you measure it, and what are the tools and platform you use?
So something we use at HubSpot to measure success of our customers prior to a leading indicator is we look at product usage and a number of different factors of how our customers are interacting with the different tools. And it shoots out what we call as a customer health score. So we have different levels that a customer can be on. And if they're a red, then we should probably be prioritizing and speaking to that customer to find out what's going on. So we're really proactive about making sure our customers are really happy. We also have NPS built into the platform to make sure we're constantly getting a temp check of how our customers are feeling and measuring the success. And then as well as growth, if a customer is growing their account, then those are our happiest customers. So those are going to be our customers that become evangelists and our customer case studies. So there's so many different ways that we really look at and measure the happiness of our customers, and that defines our success.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, there's so many measures within an organization and different tools. If I look at purely from a business perspective in terms of the business metrics, it's what's our renewal rate and are we growing our existing customer base? And that's something that we're very intently focused on, because that for us is a measure that we're delivering great customer outcomes. And, David put it's really on point, right? If you have a look at a SaaS business, you really get your return, year 2, 3 beyond, right? So having a customer stay for 2 or more years is what's delivering the return, right? So it is business critical to ensure that you are retaining those customers and you're growing them over time, because that's what really is going to drive your bottom line as an organization.
Great. Well, thank you guys. I just want to thank you so much for coming along before I hand things over to Huey. So
exit stage.
So I just wanted to introduce Huey. So for those of you that don't know who Huey Lee is, he is the man that has created this group along with Chris Jones. So I wanted to say a round of applause for Huey for doing this.
Best entrance ever. So I guess before we get started, a quick round of applause to Katie actually for emceeing the event this morning. I know for me personally, it was a bit hard to get up in this cold winter morning. So thank you again for bringing up the energy in this room. So quick introduction about myself. Huey, yes, I did, co-found this group with Chris Jones. He's actually based in the UK at the moment. I believe he's also watching in, hopefully. I'm not sure what time it is over in the UK. I'm sure someone help me. Probably is, yeah. So I guess I just want to give everyone a quick update in terms of where the group is actually going and also around our next event. So before we do that, actually, I do have another quiz. So probably see earlier that we did give away a prize. So this is going to be the last prize for today. Okay, so don't get too excited. But how many customer success professionals changed jobs in the past 90 days? In Australia, sorry, not in the world. Sorry, Australia, just to be clear. 100. Well, okay. Close. 150 is actually very close. So it's 183. Okay, so it's how many people actually have moved into a CS role in the past 90 days? Quick show of hands. I mean, don't be shy. It's okay. We're all new here. So yeah, welcome. Yeah, exactly. Welcome to customer success. So quick prize, Ava. We'll give it away. You're probably wondering why I'm actually talking about this. So this is actually going to be a theme for the next event, which we have already locked in as of yesterday. So breaking news. Change. So our last 2 events have been breakfast events. We are going to move to an evening event. So Thursday, September the 6th, locked in at Stone and Chalk. So anyone doesn't know what Stone and Chalk is, it's actually a government initiative, New South Wales government, that basically is invested into fintech. The actual event will be hosted by Flair HR, okay, a fintech company, growing company. They're actually going to be sponsoring the event for the night. So food and drinks will be provided, okay? So if you love your booze, come. If you love your food, come. If you love water, there'll be water there. So, so we've got it all covered. I have put a QR code here as well. So I did get a lot of questions leading up to the event today. Basically, I didn't hear about the event. It's sold out. To give everyone a bit of a clear idea in terms of how quickly this sold out, within 5 days. Okay, so we had actually 100 people register to this event today. I think we've got about 60 people. So, give and take. That's pretty good attendance. So basically, I thought about how we're going to get people to this large event. Now, the next event at Stone and Chalk can fit up to about 250 people. Okay, so everyone here today has the opportunity to actually register, lock their seats before we actually announce it to the group. So how are you going to do that? Oh, shit. Go back. Sorry, still swearing. Okay, so I'm going to be sending out a survey straight after the event today. Love to get some feedback from you guys, but also as well in the survey is, you know, you're going to attend the next event. If you've got your phones, you can actually just, put the QR code in right now if you like. Okay, otherwise we'll have this slide up for the rest of the breakfast event this morning. Cool. All right, Pulse APAC. So has anyone actually heard of Pulse? Gainsight, that's right. I'm not here to talk about Gainsight. It is a CS software. So Pulse is one of the largest events in the world. We're talking the largest CS conference. They've decided to bring their event here down under, here in Sydney. It's going to be a Pulse APAC event, which means that we'll have speakers from Asia, from Australia, from New Zealand at the event. This is the American event, so over 300 attendees, this is going to be APAC, sorry, wrong one. 300 attendees, that's what we're expecting. There's going to be 50 breakout sessions and over 60 speakers at the event. So it is a fairly large event. Probably wondering when it's going to happen. December the 12th. Now, I do understand that we all have Christmas parties to attend. So if you can make it, please make it. Oh, I have time. Okay, cool. I'll quickly wrap this up then. So lock it in. Okay, I'll be sharing more details in the group as well in terms of as we get closer to the actual date. But right now you can actually register, and Pulse have kindly enough given us a promo code which will give you a 15% discount to the events. Okay, so it's APAC 15, 15 meaning 15% off. 60? Oh, I'll try. Oh, sorry. Feedback is a gift for us. Something I actually used at my last job at LinkedIn, and I actually took this slide from LinkedIn. So thank you, Katie. So for us, this is our second large event. We're hoping to continue bringing these events over the next 6 to 12 months, few years. Hopefully we can get there. So the more feedback, or the more that you're honest about these events, the better for us as well. So again, I'll be sharing a survey out at the end of today for everyone to fill out. Okay, so again, honest, constructive feedback is going to help us with organizing the next events. So thank you very much. Again, I just want to thank the speakers for volunteering today to come up here and speak. Again, Katie for emceeing the event today. We do have a hashtag, so if you have any photos that you want to share to your social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you guys use, please use the hashtag SuccessAU. And thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event. And I believe there's plenty of food outside, so please eat it. Thank you, guys.
Originally? Yeah.